Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast.
I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury.
Well, what a week we've had, hey? A few minutes late, slight technical difficulties. We will not revel in those. We will celebrate what has been a fantastic week for the city of Portsmouth, eh, Simon?
Yes, so aside from apologies, everybody who's been waiting with bated breath for the show, but I forgot to press the go live button, so nothing more technical than that. It's an idiot at the controls. So we have victorious Viola and hang on, I was trying to think. No, hang on.
Pretty bloody pleased, Paula.
There we go. That's brilliant. So we have Viola and Paula from Let's Stop Aquind, who finished their round of work events to celebrate the announcement that came out this week. But yes, back onto the show for I think the third or fourth occasion to discuss that outcome.
So I guess the first and most obvious question is, how does it feel after at least 18 months, possibly closer to 2 years of campaigning, to finally have won?
Paula?
And sometimes I still can't believe it. It was 24 hours early, the decision. So it was quite a shock. It was a shock. And I had to ride I was just walking into the council and my friend phoned me and I didn't even know what she was talking about. She said, Paula, it's well done. I said, what for? And she said, they've stopped it. I said, stopped what? Anyway, and then I was talking to someone else about it and I was speaking to Stephen and then Viola and then Jane and blah, other people in the comms. And then I rode from there and it was like I was risking tooth and nail to get to everybody at the locks to celebrate. And it's just amazing. It is just, and I'm still not, I haven't come all the way down yet. I have been very wired since Thursday, I must admit. Yeah.
What about yourself,
Viola?
Viola.
I mean, as we said, feelings. What feelings do we have? We are proud. We are obviously a little bit relieved as well, but we are full of joy. We are ecstatic. We are, so many positive words. I can't even count them all on here now. But I think, when I think back at the moment, what happened, I just had a sort of inkling. I just have a look at the Planning Inspectorate website again. I mean, literally, I looked, my husband was sitting over there, and I just jumped out of the seat and said, they've refused it, he's refused it. And I just couldn't believe it. And he said, what? And then he realized, and we were like jumping up and down, and literally at the same time, led by donkeys, just texted across to our little WhatsApp group we have with them, congratulations. And I just, it was sort of, I have to say, I believed it would happen all the way through 18 months. When people said, oh, it's a lost case. No, you don't even have to do this because it's too big. You can't. And I just really did believe in it all the way through with our delays. I kept saying, no, we can do this, and we have.
Exactly.
So there was no hotline from the minister. You just had to wait to discover it online like everybody else.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of people kept asking, what do you think? I mean, even journalists rang and said, have you got any idea? And I remember one actually ringing and saying, oh, I'm trying to get hold of Kwasi Kwarteng and Aquind. And if I know, I get in touch. I'm not saying who it was, but, and then a little bit later, an hour later, now can't get hold of anybody. And that was just before. And then I think a couple of hours later, it was put on the website.
But we just had an interview with Financial Times, a few others from the comms group. Viola couldn't make it. And they were saying, and literally the decision was about an hour after this interview. And he was saying, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? But you have to have faith and you have to have hope, and and you have to keep on keeping. And they do see sense, and they have. He did, and whoever advised him has. So it's brilliant.
It certainly was good. I must admit, it was a surprise. Someone said to me at work, they said, "Oh, that Aquind thing's been refused," and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Hang on, I'm sure that's tomorrow."
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody
Because I kept
expected it
saying,
on
where have
that
you
day.
had it?
No, I don't
Yeah,
even think anybody from them in Parliament really knew. I mean, obviously, Kwasi must have known because he put it on, but I don't think people knew beforehand. Like we had no information from anybody.
And I
only
think
the
the
fact
other,
that in a little bit, she started being a bit more vocal about it the week leading up, and I think she may have known something.
and I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because so often in the previous rounds, that it crept towards the deadline day, and then usually sort of 1 or 2 days before, or a few days before, the message came out. No, not going to make a decision now. Going to kick the can down the street. So I guess you must have been, hanging on in hope and expectation for so long to finally get to the decision. Must be incredible.
I did
we
think
just
he might
the
delay it again, actually, I did think there's a possibility because France still is on a strong no, and I thought maybe they're just trying to push it a little bit further away, but obviously decision is made.
Brilliant. But we had just had a comment as well about, the either or the decision. We'd written press releases for that. And our next move, we were talking about what we would do if it was either delayed or denied, or allowed, basically, yeah. So, but none of us knew really. It was all surmising all week. But yeah, we were on the edge of our seats, and it was, we've only got another day, that sort of thing. And yeah, and then it came out.
Yeah, I can see
Brilliant.
Lynn's little question. Isn't it fantastic news? Lynn, totally, utterly fantastic. We are thrilled.
So you had Christmas a day early, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely. And New Year and birthday.
Everything in one. Yeah. So I'm just picturing that moment of you and David in your front room, and suddenly realizing that with that kind of like, I'm just picturing that was that leap off the sofa kind of that moment that's normally reserved for last minute goals in World Cup competitions for people that like football.
Yeah.
But I've just got that picture now in my head. That's going to stay there. So yes, brilliant news. Well done. So what was it, do you think, that turned it Portsmouth's way? Because it certainly didn't look certain, and at times it certainly didn't look like the voices of the people of Portsmouth and the voices of the people on the rest of the route to Lovedene were getting heard. What was it you kind of think that's turned it around?
Well, there were a hell of a. I mean, we have been writing a hell of a lot of emails over the last 18 months and talking about the route being wrong. That was one of our main things, and where it was landing, the landfall of it was, particular interest of mine. Going through a historical landfill, that sort of thing. So I think, for them to then turn around and say that because it's going through an urban area, I think they have listened to us, to be honest. I do.
Shall I come in, Paula?
Yeah.
I agree with Paula. I think one of the things which are really, really important was the persistence and also the sort of like unity. We obviously approached the whole project. We worked with all the residents. We worked cross-party. We worked with the council. We encouraged people to write objections. Every single time there was a delay, I was on my machine contacting people and saying, we need more objections. We need more objections, because you have to liaise and you have to show your objections, and it's got to be done at the right place. So, when we talk about the examination process at the beginning, the first half year, but that process continued for a long, long while. So transparency is another issue, because we really were transparent. Anything and everything we knew was out there. Every single time there was one thing, put it out so everybody knew, and we encouraged people sharing it. And I think transparency for our democracy, and that's how we see it, is so vital. And that is one of our really strong points. Paula?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's, I mean, you were very active on Facebook I mean, I'm a single mom with 2 teenage children. I've got to work and blah blah blah. But we were, so and people were sending us their emails for us to look over, But everything, we were very transparent. Everything went on there, and all our calls and meetings were, very transparent.
I think the other one, I don't know whether we mentioned that already, is perseverance. I mean, we did not give up. We wrote, like Paula said, I don't know how many emails to how many organizations, to how many ministers. I honestly, countless. And I mean, I remember Darren Saunders calling me a troublemaker at times, so it wasn't meant to be trouble, but it was meant to be helpful, so we achieve what we have achieved. And I think it really did pay off, the work of everybody, because we haven't done that yet, only in a post on Facebook and in the news. We so thank everybody, but the people in the comms group in particular worked so hard. Jane Shepherd, John T, and Jane and Jen and another Jen and Mick, and of course to the MPs we come later, but they worked so hard in the background. And there are so many people we don't even or haven't mentioned because they didn't want their names mentioned, but there was a lot going on in the background, so people were united, and that was and is amazing.
It's brilliant.
It was a full-on job, Simon.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah, sorry, I was going to just throw back to you because you I think you tried to say something earlier on and your mic cut out a bit, but it's certainly lots of people involved, and it certainly seemed from because some of the materials that you guys were producing were absolutely fantastic. There were some really brilliant graphics produced. The posters that went up were really eye-catching.
Yeah.
For something that was a sorry, say that again, Paula. You cut out. Sorry.
It went to another level when Jane Shepherd joined, the graphic designer, and John T joined, which gave me a Viola, not a backseat, but a little bit of a breather to do other things, because they were so good at writing and so good at bringing things together. And Jane's graphics were phenomenal. She's a professional graphic designer, so yeah, it just took it to another level. And then we just kept getting stronger and stronger. More ideas were flowing in, and it was amazing. The comms group were fantastic. There's so many different skills between us, and that's what really helped. The fact that all individuals,
I can see a question by Linda. I don't know whether you pick them up later. She says, I wonder if Penny tipped the balance in the end. I mean, I think Penny and Stephen, both of them, played an enormous role. Without them, we couldn't have done it. Nobody could have done it on its own, because it really was a joint effort. And Penny has been very vocal, and Stephen from the beginning, and he's pushed. And Penny pushed different sort of points of views they've pushed across, but in the end, all those came together and were taken into consideration. Now, I think she played a huge part of it, and so did Stephen.
In the letter, the actual letter from Kwasi, the 15-page letter, there is a big section in there about what Stephen has done. The list is endless. I mean, he was very, very active from start to finish. I mean, I used to post a lot of his activity from Twitter as well. But yeah, I think, having both of those on board, and Viola's, I mean, my relationship with Stephen, obviously, because the Labour side, I mean, I'm allowed to talk politics now. So yeah, from the Labour point of view, I had a brilliant
it's a politics show. It would be a bit weird if you didn't.
Yeah. But we have worked so hard not to make it political. It was cross-party. Who you were, where you were from, and that's what I mean. I read out Penny Mordaunt's speech. Viola had an amazing, fantastic relationship with Vernon Jackson. So we've collaborated with these people, and Penny, and Penny probably did help at the end, with her statements and being very vocal as well. But I think another thing as well, Simon, I must mention, when Led by Donkeys contacted us, asked if they could make a video with us, and then they were absolutely in awe of how we'd exposed all the, you know, the donations and the and certain things already, and we made the video and it went out on Twitter and it's had 2.4 million views. And I mean, I think that might have something to do with it as well. I mean, we had Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den sharing it, and Tom York from Radiohead, and Irvin Welsh, you know, Train Spotting shared it. Hugh Grant, who's got 1 million followers, and they were having loads of shares. It just went viral, and I mean that the exposure from Led by Donkeys was amazing. So it just went stronger, and
And
yeah,
just went,
and you know, the exposure, yeah, the exposure from all the donations, which, you know, is legal. Let's face it, it is legal, but it's where it's come from, isn't it? I mean, that's the question. Where is that money coming from?
The interesting thing, though, is if we look back at the decision, which was only plainly made on planning issues and not on any political issue, which is, of course, a huge question to be asked, because should there be ethical important issues involved in when we make planning and take planning decisions, you know, because we know morally and politically what we have dug up with the Pandora Papers.
Indeed. Yeah. So that's a really nice segue there. Thanks, Viola. So what I was going to do was just quickly summarize that kind of 19-page letter from Kwasi Kwarteng, that in itself is a summary of the 165-page report, which I have to be honest, I didn't read the 165-page report, but looked at his 19-page letter. Slacking. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ian, I was slacking. Forgive me. We'll just have to sack the researcher. Yeah, there were 199 representations, and then a further 79 allowed after the initial deadline. And the examining authority, which made its recommendations to the Secretary of State based on all sorts of things to do with the environment, access, air quality, the marine environment, things to do with shipping. I won't read out the entire list, but the examining authority concluded that there would be planning harms to Fort Cumberland, which is a scheduled monument grade 2 and the grade 2 listed cottage known as Scotland. The impacts on tourism receptors, impacts on sport pitches, which is something that Councillor Simon Bosher had mentioned when he'd been on the show before, because that was up in Drayton and Farnington, and also the impact on the festival. But the Secretary of State, he quotes that. So he said that in this instance, insufficient consideration was given by the applicant to the alternative connection point at Mannington substation. So he cites there was an alternative location where an offshore wind farm, there was a connection ready for it on the network, but the actual application for the offshore wind farm got turned down, and that posed the question of why didn't the applicant change their mind and decide to go for there as a place to land the cable, and indeed Portsmouth City Council said that they concluded that the matter was either deliberately overlooked or that the applicant had closed its mind to changing the route, that it doesn't make any assessment of the private loss or the consequences to individual different options, and that the Secretary of State isn't really in a position to make a qualified decision because those considerations of alternatives haven't been made. Winchester City Council and Hampshire County Council made similar points, but also disagreed with the applicant's consideration that they cited that that landing at the Navitus Bay, landing at Navitus Bay, which would have gone to that Mannington substation. They considered that would be an impact on the Jurassic coastline, but both Winchester City and Hampshire County Councils said, well, that's not true because the landing point's actually going to be along the coast from that. It's not going to be an issue. But indeed, as you say, Penny Mordaunt, Stephen Morgan, Catherine West, Flick Drummond MPs, they all submitted concerns, with both Penny and Stephen submitting petitions. But as you said, Viola, interestingly, Stephen and Penny both actually raised different issues. So came at it from a different angle with regard to that. So there were some kind of key things, but all of those things, just where, to be honest with you, whether that created enough noise to make it unpalatable, or whether it was just simply, actually, Aquind, you haven't done your homework. Go back and look at this other connection. That seemed to be the summary of the Secretary of State's decision, really.
Yeah, Simon,
Yeah.
I think we've been, I mean, the route was our original sort of set off when we started setting up the group, that we said it's the route is wrong because there are 27 alternatives. But we've pushed, and I think one of the last delays actually asked the applicant about Ninfield, because we still have been pushing Ninfield, because even Mannington compared to Ninfield doesn't seem to make sense. Ninfield would be the perfect route if they wanted to come from where they want to come from. But to be honest, we said that was at the beginning. During the development of the research and digging deep, other issues. So we changed our actual goal from stopping just the route. We wanted to stop the whole project, so that interconnector, not interconnectors per se, but that connector should not go ahead.
Okay,
Paula?
thank you.
I'm just going to what Viola said. Otherwise, I'm just going to be repeating the same thing.
And I guess one thing that struck me from that, and I'd welcome your opinions on it, because it it struck me that the quasi-Kwarteng, the main thrust of the no was there appears to be a much less disruptive, less damaging, more appropriate route just up the coast. And it reads to me like Aquind had got themselves into a position of such supreme arrogance and just almost that they weren't willing to look at alternatives, because frankly they were a massive multinational corporation, and they were going to do what they were going to do, and these two awkward women from Portsmouth weren't going to stop them.
Now, Ian, I think I have to. Sorry, can I just? There has been, if you look in the reports, there have been other routes actually looked upon quite seriously. You know, there's a lot of information out there, but obviously that Mannington has not been looked at appropriately, and Ninfield has never been in the plans.
We did try and come back with, when they were coming back with their report. I mean, I read the environmental report from Aquind with a fine-tooth comb, being an environmentalist, and they sent their environmental guy down and said that they hadn't seen any bred geese. So I sent a video of 400 honking geese the same day, and also all the research on all the landfill. I mean, there was no way I was going to stand back and let that go on. My father died of asbestosis, and there is a trail of it going from Eastern Beach all Eastern Road, and that was what I kept banging on about all the time in my emails. Just you can't just, how are you going to disturb all that stuff, and who, how are you going to get rid of it all, without disturbing it, and it's detrimental to people's health. The route was wrong from the start. The landfall of it was wrong. It was way longer than other routes as well, coming from France. It was something like 22 miles longer to come here, which is ridiculous. It was a ridiculous route from the start. But yeah, as you say, arrogance. They just thought, we're going to go there, and that's that.
Ian, I think this is my personal opinion, because I know we always have to be careful. But I think there was a different motive behind to come to Portsmouth, and we have talked about this before, particularly about the fiber optic cable and about the commercial telecommunication system. And that is one of the things Penny picked up and said it is a question of national security, and I really do think that is the case. But it's my personal opinion, because we have been asking questions. We've said, why fiber optic cable? It wasn't in the original significant infrastructure project proposal, so why would that suddenly come up as an additional, and is it a threat to our national security? And these questions have been seriously asked.
And I think that's a great lead in. You've touched on it before, and again, this and look, Simon and I have been frolicking in the mire of local politics for last 2 and a bit years, this has to be unique in terms of a project that, you know, Gerald Vernon
I'm just going
Jackson,
to my plug. Keep going.
the Gerald Vernon Jackson, the leader of the Lib Dem Council, you know, Stephen Morgan MP for Portsmouth South, the Labour MP, and Penny Mordaunt, the Conservative MP for Portsmouth North. Whilst they came at it all from different perspectives, you know, what effect do you think it's had of having all of the local major political figures uniting behind the campaign?
Enormous. I mean, we couldn't have done it without it. We couldn't, you know, we needed, all of us needed. I think it's a sort of very mutual benefit for everybody, because I think our MPs needed us behind them, and we needed the MPs behind us in order to kick the whole thing really in the direction as we did. I think if we hadn't raised our voice, it would have been harder for the MPs to push. But when you come with 6,000 signatures on a petition, and when you have people being out campaigning and people actually protesting, it shows the support for our MPs, and vice versa. Without them taking it to Parliament, we couldn't have done it. We said that already. I mean, it is just absolutely vital, and was absolutely vital, and perhaps in the coming few weeks, very vital, that we keep our work going, united. We are stronger. We know that.
Paula?
Well, I missed, because I ran upstairs to get my plug. I can't believe it was running out. I missed the thread of what you were talking.
It was really just to give your own perspective on how, you know, how important it was that, you know, all three political parties got behind the campaign in different ways, and you know, probably unique in Portsmouth's political history of something that everyone was behind. How important was that for you?
It was very important, because we knew that we weren't going to, I mean, there was a little bit of squabbling in the very first instance, and you've just got to rise above it and just keep pushing for that cross party, because we needed the council, we needed the councillors, we needed the MPs, you know, we need, and, you know, and we needed the people. We all the people. We didn't want anyone to be against anybody. We just wanted to stop Aquind, and that was what our aim was. And that is what we did. We've done it together, all of us. You know, it's a citywide thing. You know, and I'm very proud of the fact that we did rise above it all, and we just worked with everybody. And it's fantastic, and it is brilliant for the city. It's brilliant, and it's, you know, and forevermore for anyone else. You know, other, you know, people should take it on board that sometimes when something is this important, that you must work cross party. You know, we've all got our different opinions and our different ways of doing things, but when you're together, you're so strong. And, you know, and that's what we've done, and it's brilliant.
Ian, I think, you know, because I do read the sort of like notes here, I think it is true. If we think of social media, because Jen, she is part of our comms group, put in Paul Gonella, I think we have to say the role social media played. And Paul Gonella was setting up our website, and he's just done amazing work. And Jane Shepherd, she does Instagram and Twitter for us. And without you know, social media, we couldn't have done it. Again, we raised the issue, and it got around, it got shared, it got everywhere where we could. I mean, there are still people saying who's Aquind, but I think it is certainly, I would say, perhaps half the population of Portsmouth now know who Aquind is.
Yeah.
Well, we did have, we you know, as a campaign group, don't forget, this is all voluntary as well. We did, you know, I set up a fund to get our banners and our leaflets, blah, blah, blah. But we got out 40,000 leaflets and more. Okay. And the A3 and the laminating and our protest tree. And that was so amazing when you go through. I mean, at the start yesterday, all the photos, all the women we got involved. you know, knitting and crocheting, and we made the big blanket, and then all the little animals, just all these little things, and sewed them everywhere all around the city. So with the QR code on it, so that people could see, you know, what it was. We put banners up, you know, Love Dean, and along the route, we walked the route, the 12-mile route, you know, all the things we've done. It has been a day in, day out thing, you know, whether it be a conversation or a meeting or a protest in the rain. I mean, most of our protests were always in the rain. We've stood in the freezing cold. We've been soaked to the skin, and we've still carried on trooping on. And yeah, you know, it has been an amazing campaign.
And I know in the last show where we had you on, you know, the fact that so many young people are, you know, taking this to their heart and run with it.
We had our Eve, who was only 15, who fantastic. She stood with the petition thing over her, you know, a big banner on her, and got signatures. We went out on Saturday mornings. You know, we gave up all our weekends, and the kids did as well. Yeah, there was a few, but Eve Meller, yeah, she's been amazing as well. Very good.
I think the network was just amazing. People were, like Paula said, picking up leaflets, taking posters, delivering them to other people. I mean, we had a whole sort of like delivery of leaflets organized. You know, it's a bit like party work. You know, I mean, it's like you were delivering, and we got braver as we went along. You know, we first started putting posters in the dark. And then we thought, oh, you know what, you know, we've got to just do it. And so we got out during the day, and I didn't even think about it anymore, you know, because I just thought, how on earth are you going to make it known in the city if you're not out there, if you're not showing where things are? And if somebody saw the poster, they would engage actually, and you could actually explain, because our best way of talking to people would be to explain. But then, of course, COVID came in. We did 1 or 2 stalls, but then we couldn't. We had more protests planned, and we had to say that we can't do it. Very difficult in these times of COVID.
Brilliant. Yeah, COVID has a lot to answer for some things, but we did get a lot of posters out, and there's a lot of houses with posters in their windows still. You know, in most streets in.
We had fun as well, Paula, didn't we? We had fun. I mean, I remember the day when we did. I don't know whether you remember it, but we had all the vegetable and fruit and so knitted, and we had a Sunday, and we sort of decorated the tree, and we had quite a few people there, and we put solar lights up. Anyway, at the night, came back 2 hours, and then we cycled back light. I mean, it was fun as well.
But the website, I mean, also, Simon, the website was so cool because it was for people that weren't on Facebook, or social media. So where Strong Island Paul Ganella was great, because then he did a lot of visuals with the route, and then Jane's images. It was just brilliant.
Lots of people working very, very hard with some very hard work and lots of talent to bring together to get the message out there and get things done. So I guess that kind of neatly trots along to so for each of you, what would you say is the high point of the campaign, and what would you say the biggest things are that it's taught you?
For me personally, obviously the decision was great. You know, that was the best result we could have had. But I think I think I said that for Portsmouth News as well. It was the unity we worked together with, and if we set ourselves this goal, we persevered, we involved everybody, and we proved if we work together, if we cooperate as a city and beyond, we can achieve huge things. And democracy is not just an empty word any longer. It actually is really people power. And that for me is the biggest thing from the whole campaign. United, we did it. And it's wonderful. And I'm so thrilled. And it could set an example for other grassroots movements as well, to say, look, get your councillors, get your MPs on board, persist, and hopefully we can achieve good things, because we are going to need it in the time ahead.
Thank you, Paula.
Well, obviously the decision, and I'll never forget where I was when I heard about it and riding to, to meet everybody else. There's a few high points. I think going up to Parliament and handing in the petition is one, and sitting in Tony Benn's chair. And the second one is having a couple of hours phone call with a guy called Sidney Dooley, who has an allotment. And I learned he told me his life story, and he's in his 80s, and he really depends on the allotment as for solace. He grows his fruit and veg there. He spends a lot of time there, and he said he was in the war, and nothing has ever upset him more than the prospect of losing his allotment. But his life story, it's just, it's normal people who started work at 11 as a milk boy, and then a coal boy. And, and then he was a long distance lorry driver, and he's, and it was just normal people don't want this. And that was one of my high points. And I read his letter out at the planning inspectorate, and I was very emotional because I could feel his story coming through in it. But yeah, but other than that, yeah, Parliament and the decision obviously is so fantastic.
That's absolutely marvelous.
I think Ian, just all the different things we have sort of done. I mean, whether it's the Craftivism project, whether it's doing some stalls, whether it's riding on our bikes and putting all the posters up, whether it's meeting the group and discussing. I mean, there is just so much we have learned because we've never ever done anything like this before. And I think that is amazing. And just Paula, to come back, poor Sid is in hospital as we speak. He rang me yesterday. Anyway, so I will give him the link, and then hopefully he can watch it. He will be delighted.
Well, bless him. Let's hope Sid gets gets well soon, because I think, as you say there, Paul, a bit behind everything else and all the economics and the politics and everything else, there are so many human stories kind of attached to this, and it's lovely to hear it. So I guess, touching on the risk, Aquind have 6 weeks to lodge an appeal for the decision. It looks like the business secretary has given them a fairly clear steer of where they should go next with this in terms of pointing them towards Mannington. Do you think they will appeal?
Probably. At this moment, they probably will, but I think because it is an urban area where we are, I think that he will withhold his decision, and we won't give up anyway. We're not going to go anywhere, are we? Look, this whole city's behind us now. We're not going anywhere.
I'm not so sure whether they will actually launch an appeal. I know he said it in the Financial Times, but what he actually said, may I just read out? That is quite interesting. Hang on. It will be impossible for the government to defeat our challenge. I mean, is he taking on the whole government now?
He is.
And when you I've cited it, yeah, I've read the article, and I've just written down these two and about Penny Mordaunt. Penny Mordaunt's political interference is inappropriate for a sitting minister to speak out against it. I mean, we are in a democratic country where we are luckily allowed to say what we think and what we feel. We've got to be sometimes a bit careful because we have to express our personal opinion. But I think, is he going to take on the government? Is he really? I mean, if he's got any sense, I would say he could grab Mannington and could make something of Mannington. But we have to say, what about France? If he can't actually, or if they can't actually start the project in France, what is the point in trying to get another DCO or trying to appeal? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the French are as strong as ever, as far as I know.
Yeah, and I think
Oh, sorry, just to clarify, Viola, who was it that the Financial Times were quoting then?
It was, if you look, I think it was Friday or Saturday, and it was
Yeah.
Alexander Tomurko actually said
Right.
that,
Okay.
who is
Right,
a
okay.
director, yeah, and he's got some voting
Okay.
shares of Aquind.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ian. Sorry.
And I think on one of our earlier shows we had our friend and colleague from non-Aquind, which was just no.
Yeah, we
And
did.
and I think they've, again, don't mess with Portsmouth and don't mess with rural France. So
Absolutely.
I think there's an element of, as you say, I think the business secretary may have given them the nod that says, if you route it to Mannington, it might get better for you. But as you make the very sage point, Viola, they've got to get through France yet, and they are not close, I don't think.
No. And I think what we do now is, I mean, Portsmouth City Council was and is very supportive. And I think if they did do, we would look all very carefully in what's going to happen next. So I don't think, like you say, that Portsmouth is going to be an easy case.
No, and I can't remember. It might have been one of you, or it might have been one of your team, that was quoted in the evening news as saying they basically picked on the wrong city to pick a fight with.
Steve Pitt once said, I think I said that, and he said in I think it was in October at the protest, he said, they don't know Portsmouth, the residents of Portsmouth, Yeah.
Yes, and Jan's put into the comments, and we'll never give up, and neither will the French. Yeah, I think it's a fair kind of summary. If they weren't expecting bloody mindedness and determination from Portsmouth, I don't think they've considered how good at protesting the French can be when they decide to it. So at the end of the day, if they were expecting an easy ride, it's not happening on either side of the channel. So I guess that ball is entirely in their court as to whether they decide to appeal or whether it's not worth it.
Simon, one of the arguments, I think we have talked about it before, is because we always talk about energy being needed, but what tends to be forgotten is that there are quite a few interconnectors already being built and already in the pipeline. And what the French said as well is, the Aquind interconnector is not necessarily, and that's not just the French, it's also the equivalent to Ofgem. It's not one of the interconnectors they would officially sort of promote. There's another one at the moment, GridLink is going through, and they haven't even decided for that one yet. So Francis, we don't really need it,
Indeed, it's like you say, it's not the only one. There are several out there that connect the UK to mainland Europe and to the electricity grids in mainland Europe. So yes, only time will tell, but let's see whether they think better of it. So the next question was, what's next for each of you? So assuming that they don't decide to go ahead and appeal, or at least in this 6 weeks of respite that you might have, kind of what other plans do you have?
Well, there's lots of other things to be getting involved with now. There's Tip the Point. I'm up for election again. I'm going to be. So I'm going to be really busy with that soon again, like I was last year. But yeah, there's always, protecting our biodiversity is one of my main things, Simon, to be honest, and that's why I just did, got my teeth into this and didn't let go, because, our nature reserves it's imperative now that we don't touch those areas. We build on them and, nurture them. We're in a climate emergency. We need these areas more than ever. And so, I'll carry on being an environmentalist, keep planting trees, and
Indeed. So is that a Pompey Politics podcast? Is that a declaration of your candidacy as a scoop, or is that already common knowledge? Should we get it? Should we get excited that we've got a
No.
scoop already?
No. Well, I've been selected, so yeah, it's it's. Anyway, Viola,
Yep. Best of
Yeah.
luck.
to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to energize the group and obviously put a question to the group, but we've got to wait 6 weeks and see what's happening because it might take much longer. We can't do anything beforehand. There's quite a few projects here in the city which need to have perhaps some more public attention and help. I mean, I'm particularly interested in the, as we all know, the 17,701 houses which have to be built in Portsmouth over the next 10, 15 years, which is an absolutely unrealistic target. I know it, but the government is asking us to do so. So perhaps it would go that way. We've got already somebody who's really into Stop the Sewage, so I think we could see how the group feels. We also have got St. James's Hospital development, which is, we know, very, very, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, very destructive for Portsmouth's environment. So whether we can help Rod Bailey in his request to have a better sustainable option for what has been suggested so far. There are bigger issues, of course, as well. I said to the comms group, perhaps we also could together put all our energy together and produce a little booklet. That would be quite nice for future grassroots movements. So there's lots and lots of ideas, but I think important is that we, again, like we did with this group, that we get the people behind. And I've got a few ideas in my head, and I certainly will want to go one way or the other to make sure, like Paula, that our environment for Portsmouth is so crucial. It is not just Portsmouth, generally. We need to focus on it. If we don't do, we haven't got a chance, and we've got to make sure that our green spaces are kept, that we, like Paula says, we plant trees, that we do everything we can to increase or at least keep biodiversity where we are at the moment and don't go down the hole.
So
Okay.
I think Viola, it would be fair to say that in all of our podcasts, and it's been lovely chatting with you, that you seem like the unlikely activist, that you fell into this a little bit by accident, but now seem to be, very comfortable. And I guess in terms of having had such a massive win, do you see activism now being part of your life going forward?
Oh, absolutely, because I think, one I've got a couple of things which are really in my heart. One is, of course, the environment, and the second one is injustice. And I think, there's a lot to do in these both fields. So, yeah, definitely, I do definitely call myself an activist now. Yeah, totally.
And just to bring in some of so I'll just bring in a couple of comments from Jan. So speaking to the point that we discussed earlier on about there already being enough interconnectors, she mentions that there's 14 interconnectors either under construction or already in use, or that have been approved. So is there really kind of need for that many? She also makes the suggestions that actually the campaign would make an amazing film. So who knows? You might be selling the rights. You might be selling the rights to Hollywood.
I think that's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I think that's a great one.
So
That's a brilliant one.
You get a choice now to decide who plays your character in the Hollywood blockbuster. Then
Juliette Binoche. No, it's just, I think we all feel that it is something, other groups can look at and see, you can win, you can do it, you really have a chance. Don't give up. Don't say, oh, I won't achieve anything, I can't do it. We've always been like this. I think this is a phrase which really upsets me. People saying it's always been like that and you're not going to change it. And I think, this
Oh,
is
they're
the
all
beauty
same.
about this, that you can.
But as the
That's
saying goes, never fail to believe that a small and dedicated bunch of group of citizens can make a real difference in the world, because the truth is it's the only thing that ever has. And I forget who that's to, so I can't attribute it, but it's never more true than in this example. Sorry, Paula, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Who's going to be playing you
It's
then in the
right.
Hollywood blockbuster?
I don't know. Oh, me.
That was to be fair, that was Jan's idea as well. She said that the campaigners should play themselves. But yeah, she's got a couple of suggestions of different directors. So who knows? Ken Loach, Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh.
And
who knows? Watch this space.
Sorry. And we can have Janet Ayres keep on keeping on, because it's such a fantastic song.
Yes, there we go. See, look, you've got the idea of a movie. You've got the theme tune. You've got the movie record.
I did start
Sun, yeah, sun's breaking over Eastney. Cumberland Tower comes into focus. Moody shot. The long shadows of the people stood along the shoreline. Socially distanced, long shadows. Oh, it's a beautiful opening.
No,
there we go.
Being news.
And
45 minutes, only put 3 of the words on live. Yeah.
Well, who knows? So just before we go to the last question, Matilde says, Paul and Viola, you are an inspiration. Thank you for a great show. So thank you very much, Matilde. Glad you're enjoying it. So the last one, Ian.
Yeah, I guess this one's a little bit technical, and it's the question of, is there a piece of legislation or something in place that if it had been there, this wouldn't have meant you had to campaign? Is there something missing in the books that means that these sort of campaigns are needed?
Yes, because I mean, definitely. If when we first started the campaign, I tried to do a petition about making sure that local authority have the say on their city. Okay, that no one else can make the decision on it. It's our decision as a city that green areas should be kept as they are. I mean, I think that would be an amazing law, if all legislation, if we could bring that in. That was one of the ones, that I just think it would have saved all of this. We wouldn't have had to do it. As amazing as it's been, it would have saved a lot of it. But yeah, but it kept getting denied. The petition kept getting denied because they don't want you to have local authority to be able to make decisions on certain big things like this. They want it to be a big central government decision.
But I think the thing is, they said, I think I remember when you set up the petition, they say we already have the say, but it is about this nationally significant infrastructure project. They made it where we have no say. And I think if I could imagine if this new Environmental Act was implemented into the planning process, because it has been passed in November, then it might have been more difficult to actually go through with what they have done now. And then, of course, the other question I've always raised is planning issues is great, but where do we ask those questions about ethics of a business, about funding background of a business? Should that not also come into should we not look into it when we actually accept a huge project like the Aquind interconnector? But we were again and again told it's not part of the examination process. It's not part of the examination process. So when and where does that come in? And that I think that should be coming in, and perhaps an independent body where you can ask those questions. We are saying that the Office for Environmental Protection does it. Yeah, I did write to them, but I didn't get anything back. Oh yeah, I did get something back, and then it referred me to this and this and this and this and this and this and this. But it wasn't really
And
helpful, I have to say.
And I'll just say, in the beginning, when we were sending emails around, like to all these different people, and they kept pinging back saying, you need to go to your local authority to speak to them about it, you know, because even they were in the mind of that's where we should be going. But, you know, it was already out of their hands. It had already been taken out of their hands. So, yeah, that would be a big one.
Yeah, I think probably, you know, Whitehall doesn't really know about our local sort of like issues, doesn't really know, you know, exactly how many green spaces we have, how many, you know, they do know we are the most densely populated city and high pollution, but I feel like it's disconnected. So what really should perhaps happen is that the decision should be made from below, and that perhaps a better cooperation with the government is taking place, because if they take it out of our hands, what can we do? We've done it, but my God, the hard work. God.
Yeah. In answer of what can we do, I think you have set a fantastic example to any local group with a passion as to what can be done. So thank you to both of you. You've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris, and our two legendary activists have been
Viola Langley and Paula Savage. Paula, we can't hear you.
Don't tell us you're on mute. And Paula. Okay. Join us next week where we'll be having an episode Independence Day 2, where we're welcoming back to the show Councillor George Madgwick with two of his candidates for the upcoming May local elections. So join us next week at 6:27. Live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. That's the Pompey Politics podcast.